Hey everybody, BenJAMin here. The Switch 2 has now been out for a little over a year, and I gotta say, I'm still enjoying it just as much as I did when it first came out. Though I will admit that this past year's launch lineup has been not quite as good as 2017. But that's besides the point. The question I wanted to answer is, after 1 year, what is the best Nintendo Switch 2 game? And I'm gonna be completely honest, it's Donkey Kong Bonanza. Now, I understand that it might not be everybody's cup of tea. There's a bit of a controversy around the game, or some people are saying, it's not quite my thing. Then there are other people that say, yeah, it's not a new 3D Mario game though. Regardless, I wanted to take some time today to talk about what I think about Donkey Kong Bonanza and why I think it is not only the best Switch 2 game, but the main system seller, and why you should go out and buy this game over any other if you haven't already got a Switch 2. Now, to preface, as we speak, I'm still working on the script for this video because frankly, how can I explain the game? Frankly, I don't really know, but I'm gonna try and do my best here. So come along, let's track this from the beginning. Donkey Kong Bonanza is the latest entry in the Donkey Kong franchise. It's the first new DK game since Tropical Freeze on the Wii U in 2014, and the first 3D entry since Donkey Kong 64 back in 1999. However, going over the gameplay history of the DK series doesn't really set up how we got to Bonanza. Instead, we have to take a look at the developers of this game, Nintendo EPD Tokyo. This is the studio behind all of the 3D Mario games since Super Mario Galaxy in 2007. Prior to the Switch 2, their last major title was Super Mario Odyssey in 2017, and Donkey Kong Bonanza takes a lot of inspiration from that game's design. Like Mario Odyssey, DK Bonanza is a sandbox-style game where you drop into a world and are required to complete a variety of platforming challenges to find collectibles, uncover hidden areas, and progress the overarching story. Where Bonanza differs from Odyssey is how you traverse the world. What do I mean by this? Well, with Mario, his specialty is running and jumping. Sounds basic, but there's a variety of ways that he can do these actions. He can long jump, wall jump, backflip, triple jump, all sorts of things. And with Cappy, he gets an additional bounce that allows him to traverse longer distances in the air. With this versatile moveset in mind, Odyssey builds its levels around tightly designed platforming challenges, utilizing the capture mechanic to overcome obstacles. By comparison, all DK can really do is jump once, roll on the ground, and wall climb. It's even more basic than Mario, but without much nuance, so traditional platforming wouldn't exactly be that engaging. Thus, Nintendo had to ask themselves a simple question: what makes Donkey Kong different from Mario? Well, where Mario has strong acrobatic abilities, Donkey Kong has raw power with his giant gorilla arms. With this heavyweight nature in mind, Nintendo then would have to ask themselves another question. Instead of jumping around and avoiding obstacles, what if you could just punch your way straight through them? Enter Bonanza's primary gimmick: punching and smashing your way through any and all terrain in your path. There are countless ways to do this, from punching with your bare hands, forwards and backwards, up and down, to ripping off chunks of the terrain to swing, throw, and drill with. When these gimmicks were initially shown off in the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct in April of 2025, it looked really cool, but I wasn't sure if the mechanic would be all that engaging in practice. And to be honest, it took a couple of hours for me to fully understand the hook as I started playing. Let me walk you through the experience. The game opens on Ingot Isle, where DK is taking part in a massive gold rush that also happens to involve bananas. The moment you drop in the opening area, you are presented with the Bananium Gem, the main collectible of Bonanza. You can either go straight towards it, or you can look around and start smashing away. Nearly every piece of the terrain is destructible, and each block you destroy has its own unique properties. There's the typical rocky terrain that requires a good punch to break through. Then there's the softer terrain that's easier to break and often leads to new passageways. And then there's the glowing terrain that has explosive properties to them. All of these terrain types lead to many different ways of breaking through levels to progress. However, it was kind of hard to see the scope of this newfound ability, so I still wasn't quite getting it. As you keep barreling along, catastrophe strikes as the whole island is drilled into the ground by a giant meteor, and all of the Bananium gems are taken by Voidco, an evil corporation that's heading to the planet core to find the Bananium root. Anyone who gets there will have their greatest wishes granted, but the Bananium root is indifferent to the morale of those wishes. Given that Void Kong, the leader of the Void Company, is obsessed with infinite gold and ruling the world, it's up to DK to reach the planet core before he does and put a stop to his evil schemes. As you start chasing after Void Kong and his crew, you come across Oddrock, a little buddy that joins you on your adventure and becomes essential to not only the plot, but key special abilities that I'll get to in a little bit. This intro leads to the Lagoon Layer, the first big open area of the game that allows you to experiment with your moveset a lot more. At this point, I start to get a hang of the controls and understanding the true power of DK's moveset. Even just rolling on the ground would cause the earth to crack. This was also the part where more traditional platforming challenges appeared throughout the level. I was afraid that DK's vast moveset would completely eliminate any challenges, but surprisingly, there was a lot more cohesion in the level design to keep DK's moveset limited when necessary. Eventually, you arrive at the first Elder of the game. These are guides that help you find what you seek on your adventure. There are 5 of them throughout the game, and each one also gives DK what is called a Bananza transformation. But first, Oddrock is broken free to reveal Teen Pauline. She's a bit shy, but with encouragement from DK, she grows past her nerves to sing, and by the power of her singing, she transforms Donkey Kong into the Kong Bananza. This is when Donkey Kong's powers go on steroids, and within a few moments of utilizing the Bananza powers in the Lagoon Layer, something awoke inside of me.
Loyalty.
I get it now. From the hilltop layer to the canyon layer, the flow of Donkey Kong Bananza's gameplay fully sets in. In the canyon layer specifically, it feels like anytime you break away from the intended path, there's something new to find. Whether it's a Bananium gem, fossils, treasure chests, or an abstract battle challenge or platforming challenge, anything you find always helps you progress one way or another. A little more on that later. When fighting enemies, you can also combo your moves to cause chain reactions that blow up multiple parts of the terrain, which opens up even more pathways to progress. With that said, that doesn't necessarily mean that the game is smooth sailing all the way through. In later parts of the game, such as the freezer layer and the forest layer, you'll get punished for mindlessly punching your way through the terrain, as there's new environmental elements such as lava, poison lakes, and thorns that hurt Donkey Kong. At the same time, you get even more Bananza transformations, such as the Zebra, which allows DK to run super fast on fragile terrain, and the Ostrich, which allows you to fly through the air and drop egg bombs on your enemies. Even these power-ups can be chained together in creative ways to reach areas you otherwise couldn't. Each Bananza ability also has its own unique song that Pauline sings, which highlights the phenomenal soundtrack of Bananza. These songs in particular turn the game from a Hulk-smashing simulator to an all-out rave. The Kong Bananza theme is a classic, but the Zebra theme is one of my favorites out of them all, and the Ostrich theme is just okay. Slight spoilers ahead, but I also wanted to touch on the Bananza transformations in the back half of the game. The Elephant Bananza is by far the best and most broken power in the game. Instead of smashing through terrain, you can suck it all up with your trunk. This includes harmful terrain such as lava or thorns, which can then be turned into boulders and used to throw back at your enemies. Makes a lot of sense why it's not given to you until the second half of the game. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there's the Snake Bananza, which almost acts like the spring mushroom from Super Mario Galaxy. You can use this to jump super high and bust through terrain vertically, but outside of the Radiance layer, there aren't many use cases for this power-up. You can also slow down time briefly, but that also doesn't do much in the grand scheme of things. That said, I still transform into the Snake Bonanza for extended periods of time just so I can listen to the best Bonanza theme in the game. Last thing I'll touch on here is the story. For a franchise that doesn't really focus on this, Nintendo did a really good job telling a heartfelt story about the bond between DK and Pauline. Pauline starts out as a timid teenager that has a great talent to sing, but feels embarrassed to share it, especially out of fear that it will be exploited by those like Void Kong. However, as she ventures through the different layers with DK, she slowly gains the courage to not be afraid of letting her talent shine. She even starts opening up to DK at getaways about her life back home. And by the end of the game, she's fully confident in her abilities, able to stand against anyone who tries to take advantage of her talent. On top of this, the game slowly peels back the curtain on the lore of this world, revealing key insights about the Mario universe that we didn't know before. Everything in this game has a greater story purpose on why things are structured the way they are, especially when it comes to the enemies. That's information I'd rather not get further into, as it's best for you to figure it out yourself when you play the game. Speaking of intentionality in game design, let's talk about why I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is better than Super Mario Odyssey.
I can explain.
Now, one thing I have continuously glossed over have been the collectibles, and that's because it's the key reason why I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is better than its predecessor, Super Mario Odyssey. One of the biggest criticisms of Mario Odyssey, at least for me, was how the game handles moons, the main collectible of the game. There are 880 of them in total, but you only need 124 of them to beat the main story. After that, the moons don't serve much of any purpose beyond unlocking a couple of super hard post-game challenges. This wouldn't be such a big deal if it weren't for the fact that the moons are literally everywhere, and a lot of them don't take much effort to grab. Get on top of a building, there's a moon. Kick a rock a couple of times, oh look, another moon. Sit next to a dude on a bench, yep, another moon. It feels like Mario could sneeze funny and get another moon. And yet, you basically can't do anything with these once you acquire them. By comparison, Bonanza doesn't require you to collect any Bananium gems to beat the main game. So why would you collect them at all? Well, every 5 Bananium gems you get, Donkey Kong gets a skill point, which could be used on a skill tree? That's right, not all of Donkey Kong's moves are unlocked from the start, but the more gems you find, the more powerful DK becomes. These upgrades can range from gaining more health and packing a bigger punch, to upgrading your Bonanza powers by adding shockwaves to your Kong Bonanza punches, or increasing the suction power of your trunk in the Elephant Bonanza. You can even add more moves, such as the ability to turf surf on water. But that's only half the story, as Bananium gems aren't the only item you'll collect on your adventure. You will also find fossils of all shapes and sizes scattered across each map. These can be exchanged at the shops in villages to gain clothing items for DK and Pauline. This also existed in Super Mario Odyssey with the purple coins in each kingdom, but the key difference is that the clothing items in Odyssey are purely cosmetic, while the clothing items in Bonanza actually change something about DK. As an example, depending on the clothes Pauline is wearing, you can extend the length of a certain Bonanza transformation. If you add different types of pants or ties to DK himself, he can take less damage against certain enemies and terrain, or be able to find more treasure chests in the ground. You can even upgrade each clothing item by finding more rare fossils found throughout the map as well. All these incentives create much more value in exploring every nook and cranny of every layer in Bonanza. Like I said, the more you find, the more powerful DK becomes. And trust me, you're gonna need to juice DK up before the last 25% of the game, as the difficulty spikes significantly and punishes you badly if you're not prepared. This flow also makes Donkey Kong Bonanza more replayable than Super Mario Odyssey, in my opinion. It took me nearly 3 years to 100% Mario Odyssey, and I've only done it one other time since then. By comparison, I've already 100%ed Bonanza twice within the first year of its release. It may come down to personal preference on how you play video games here, but this is just my take. I'm never gonna get tired of that jingle. To wrap things up, I want to dive deeper into the nature of Donkey Kong Bonanza and why I think it is still the best Switch 2 exclusive you can get on the platform. To do this, we have to take a look at one of the most obvious reasons to buy a Switch 2 in the first place: to get a massive hardware upgrade. In my Switch 2 review last year, I talked about the system having much higher resolutions and frame rates across the board. On top of this, the Switch 2 has significantly more RAM as well as DLSS upscaling technology, which allows games with higher graphical fidelity to run smoothly on the system. The best examples of this come from third-party companies such as Square Enix and Capcom, with games like the Final Fantasy VII Remake Trilogy, Resident Evil Requiem, and Pragmata. However, higher quality graphics aren't the only thing that more RAM brings. It also allows for more elaborate gameplay experiences that mostly weren't possible on Switch 1. Examples would include Mario Kart World's interconnected map larger than most open world games, or Age of Imprisoment's intense hack-and-slash gameplay running at a rock-solid 4K 60 FPS. But neither of these are necessarily offering wholly unique gameplay experiences that you can't get on other platforms. And that's been one of the main issues with Nintendo's first-party output this past year. This is where Donkey Kong Bonanza stands out from every other experience on Switch 2. The unique nature of the game comes in its destructible world. The physics implemented make the gameplay experience feel not only like something I've never experienced in a game before, but also like something that wasn't possible in previous console generations. Now sure, you can make the argument that Minecraft and other games like this allow you to build and shape worlds however you like. But first of all, Minecraft and Donkey Kong Bonanza are two completely different genres in gaming, going after two completely different things. Plus, Minecraft only allows you to break terrain block by block, where Bonanza allows you to break terrain molecule by molecule,
atom by atom. Uh-oh.
Yes, by a landslide. Now, is that to say that there aren't other games coming down the pipeline that might overtake Donkey Kong Bonanza? No, the Ocarina of Time remake coming out later this year definitely might be a contender. And to be honest, there are still a couple games that came out within the last year that are in fact contenders for most people to be the best Switch 2 game. Those other two games being Mario Kart World and Pokemon Pokopia. Mario Kart World has received a lot of updates since the last time I talked about on this channel, including new knockout tours that just got added to the game, which is great, but in my opinion is still a long way from being a contender for one of the best Switch 2 games. And Pokopia is just not my kind of game at all. All that said, Donkey Kong Bonanza is still my favorite Switch 2 game and will likely be that way for a while. It is easily the most unique 3D platformer to any other games I've played in the past in the same genre, and I truly think it is better than most of the 3D Mario games, including Super Mario Odyssey that I've already talked about in this video. And with that, I hope you enjoyed my review of Bonanza. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to make sure you keep up with the latest that's going on in this channel. And now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go down to the disco layer to jam out with DK. See y'all next time.